Do you feel like people get married or get baptised, all these things for like a show of success then?
I don't know if it has to be success. I'll be honest, when I get married, it will be a big party because I want one. Like, that's it. It's not to show success. It's not, I just want a big party. Although I do think the messaging by society at times around things like marriage is communicating to people, this is how you have a successful life, and that I have an issue with.
It's not just that it's communicated to people, because the way men and women are socialized are completely different. Marriage is something that is pushed onto women in a way that isn't pushed onto men. I had a friend of mine tell me about a girl's trip that she wanted to plan to Mexico with one of her friends. And the friend said, oh, babe, I can't go because I want to experience it with my future husband. These are the kind of mindsets that so many young girls are socialized into having. They hold back on so many experiences that they want to have for themselves. It facilitates that kind of thinking because girls are socialized to seeing marriage as the biggest day of their life. If I do decide that I want to get married, it still will not be the biggest day of my life. The purpose of my life is for me to live it and for me to enjoy it and for me to discover myself outside of what I'm being told.
Even within manhood, right, there comes a point where there's now podcasts of men who just talk about their coming of age and they've partied, they've lived life, they've got the money, and they speak to them, they're just having an open conversation and speaking like, one thing I haven't done is married. I wonder what marriage would feel like.
Yes, but what I'm saying is that the way marriage is made to be prioritized by women and young girls is not how it's not the case for men. You just said, oh yeah, I've lived, I've partied, I've done this, maybe now it's time for marriage. Young girls are socialized to prioritize and think about marriage from when they are girls.
I think regardless of gender, when I'm working with people, I want them to unpack why they want something.
Yeah.
Because I think that is what will actually lead to success in whatever way he meant. Like if you think that marriage is a thing you want because you feel like you've lived your life, you now want to settle down and that's success to you, great. But for some people, they've been told that marriage has to happen.
Yeah. And that to put their life on hold until.
So for me, my biggest thing, regardless of how people want to do marriage, because I do think in this society, there has been progression. I think it would be unfair to say there hasn't been, but I think people need to unpick the why underneath it. Because there are people who have framed their life around negative influences, whether it's a parent who was narcissistic, who's told them, you will never be worth anything until you marry. You know, like that sort of core belief. I work with so many people where that is ingrained in them. And so for me, we need to unpick this belief that was like sewed into you.
You've got to separate what is cultural. And some things that are cultural can even be cultural Christianity.
Okay.
That the way that a Christianity is done in maybe Africa is not done in North America. So every context of where Christianity or culture is emerging from will have its own distinct, oh, you do this or you do that. And it's not the same everywhere.
Yeah, and I agree with you. However, for me, still, I would encourage anyone in a moment of self-reflection of why is this what I am prioritizing?
Yeah.
Because that doesn't mean you're going to deconstruct it and let it go.
There's more nuance to people's desires of these things. My hesitation is that with religion, it often comes from a point of control and living out.
What's that controlling looking like?
Telling people what they should do and what they shouldn't do. And telling them that their life is the way that they are living their life in this particular way is the wrong way to live it.
But if someone prescribes to a faith and prescribes to a certain, let's call it framework, isn't it the pastor's job to reinforce, like, this is how we enter into marriage as a Christian? The way we enter into marriage as a Christian won't be the same as we enter it if we were of a different faith. Isn't that the community guideline that, we promote what we believe in?
Do you feel like you can have a loving, meaningful life without Christ? I
don't think being married is the symbol of success. Fulfilling your purpose is the symbol of success. You are created for a reason, and you have a legacy to leave. And I think the most important legacy to leave is, did you live by love? Did you live by integrity? Did you do good in the world? And above all, did you have a relationship with your Creator?
You shaked your head there. Do you feel like you we don't have a purpose?
It's not that we don't have a purpose. I think it would be very, how oversimplistic to say that there's one purpose to life. Earlier, when you were talking about, you know, before you became a pastor and a Christian, you always dabbled in a different kind of belief. Have you ever thought about not believing in anything?
Everyone believes in everything.
But like,
I think everyone has a belief
in something.
Like, even the way you're speaking, right? I wanted to ask you, right? The way you're speaking, it's basically not atheism. It's I don't know what the right word is, but you are the God. That's what it sounded like. It doesn't sound like atheism.
I don't need to deify myself in order to.
No, it's not
like,
deifying. You're self-governing and you're self-determining, and you
as
choose.
we all are. I think we all relinquish different levels of.
Yeah, but when you have faith in God, you kind of submit to a subscription of ideas and thoughts that you believe were inspired by this God. But when you are not that, and you're an atheist, and you don't believe in anything.
Being atheist doesn't mean I don't believe in anything. I just don't believe in one more God than you do. Like, that's all it is.
If you lived in isolation, I would say, yes, she's made herself her own God, because there is no community.
No other reference,
there's no
other than my
person
imagination.
to bounce back. Yes, exactly. Because I think the rules for life, or the framework we operate in religion, I think people still find that in other communities. And I think that can mean that they are not putting themselves on that idol. I think it can still be a balanced life. I find it really hard when Christians say, well, you're an idol to yourself if you're an atheist. Because I've also worked with enough people who really aren't idolizing themselves, but they're also not idolizing God. They're kind of just in this middle ground of figuring out, does anyone have to take that place, or does everyone take that place? You know, it doesn't have to be a one person.
Nature is not, you know, a binary thing. Nature is just is. It's about survival, it's about evolution, it's about development, it's about adapting to your environment and changing. For example, we have literally witnessed the change in a species from a wild creature to a more docile and domesticated being. That is a process of evolution. That's how we have, you know, like cats and all these things and all these different breeds. We literally see the change in a species over time. We can observe these things.
But that's an animal. We're not creating.
So what are humans? Are we not part of the animal kingdom? Humans have literally
humans
evolved.
Are created in an image of God.
We're not. That's your belief.
What's your thoughts on community?
We need it to thrive, whether you believe in God or not. I feel like inside of human beings is the desire to connect, desire to relate, desire to be seen and heard. Now, if you bring it to a faith-based perspective, which I stand on, we see God not just as one person. He dwells in a community. If you read the Bible, it says, let us create man in our image. And even when Adam was created, God then said, Adam, it's not good for you to be alone. Here's Eve, so you can have a relationship, because he needed another person to relate to. So community in its essence is how we're wired. It's just how we are.
I agree. I think community is foundational for our humanity. I think as humans, we are community-based, like species, in a sense. And I think our hurt often happens in community, so our healing has to happen in community. And I think, unfortunately, for some, religion has been the place of hurt, and so outside of it is where healing comes. And for others, the outside space has been the place of hurt. And religion, Christianity, faith is the place that they find healing in community. And I hope in my life, I am in healthy communities and I can continue to love and care for those who I love and care about. And that is something I value personally. But again, I think people have different things that they might put on a pedestal, or they might have as a priority. For some it's money, for some it's love, for some it's marriage. It's all very different. And I don't know if I can honestly say that there is one way to live life. However, I do think for a religion, there has to be rules within a religion. So it doesn't shock me when any person of faith is like, well, I follow this rule, and this rule, because those rules are also in place, not just for your life and your betterment, because it's within the context of you forming a relationship with God. And I think that's why it's put in place, where for those who aren't also trying to form a relationship with God, I think there can be different meaning.